We are back.
As they like to say in the South, it's fall, y'all.
Yeah, we're back and ready for some chilly racing this weekend.
It is looking brisk. It's September 29th, the year 2022. Welcome aboard, everybody. You listen to the Crushing Iron podcast, and this is episode 621.
You're getting real good at that, man.
I know. I mean, we run the ship like clockwork. We're consistent. If all things, we might not be the best podcast or the worst, but we are consistently mediocre. And that's why many of you, all 9 of you love us. And if you're our 8th or 9th hopping in here today, we appreciate you tuning in and giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Your time is very valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We covered it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts like we will today. We do race recaps and also race previews. Speaking of race previews, one of our most popular race previews, I think the very first one we ever did, is Muncie 70.3. That's this Saturday along with Memphis. It looks cool, looks brisk, but it looks like absolutely spectacular racing weather. As long as you stay warm on the bike, you can rip off and have some awesome run performances, looks like. So go back in the archives, look up our Muncie 70.3 race preview. We'll do recaps and stuff like that. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life as human beings, but also as athletes and coaches ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I both work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes looking at their very first sprint, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to Kona, and everyone in between. And speaking of, that's next week. We'll do a little bit of a Kona preview next week. The women and some of the men race on Thursday, then take a day off. And then the rest of the professional men and age group men race on Saturday. We've got 3 C26 athletes in Kona ready to rip up the course. But it should be interesting time. The first time they've had the 2-day event and split up the female and the male for the World Championships there in Kona. So we'll talk about that next week. But we work with a wide range, and we'll use the feedback loop we have with them via Training Peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the topic of the discussion of the day. We also utilize our Facebook group. You can search for that, Crushing Iron Group. It's not our page, but it is our group. You'll have to answer one simple question. We'll let you right in. A lot of great people, awesome resource, fabulous community, willing to lend a helping hand for your questions and things you're confused about. Or let's be honest, a lot of times we just ask questions. We don't really have a question. We just need some positive affirmation. And that's the group that you're signing up for. People will steer you away from making mistakes, or they will affirm your already thought out smart decisions. And we go in there at least once a month, do a little bit of a Q&A and take the pulse of the community, let them ask questions, and Mike and I both do our best to get to them in a timely manner. But that's it. We don't do sponsors. We do not do ads. Because frankly, let's be honest, you guys would just fast forward through them and be annoyed by them. So we will never do them. And our job is to keep you happy and healthy, which is also our agenda. Do our best to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah. Occasionally we'll have quasi ads for ourselves, which is okay, I think.
That's right. Even though we are also quasi the worst self-marketers when it comes to doing stuff like that. But, okay, sometimes we need to be reminded, and sometimes, it's good to plug ourselves. We have a, halfway decent, mediocre product, and we're on the street to help people. On
that note, we have some new shirts, long sleeve and hoodies, and based on the Zoot kit design that we have, sort of that neon looking.
However,
it's cool. I really love them. I'm working on the inventory. I should have that up in the store. I'll make a post when I get everything organized and ready for sale. But some hoodies and long sleeve Turts t-shirts. It's perfect timing.
Long sleeve Turts.
I'm trying to come up with a new product. Maybe that's it. The Turt. I don't know.
Turt, man. Is that the newer millennial hip version of the turtleneck?
Could be. Yeah, the
Turts, yeah. Yeah, it's just, honestly, that's all a gator is like you just chopped off the sweater part of the turtleneck and you decided to call it a gator.
Yeah,
like
we have those too.
Yeah, we have those too. Honestly, it's probably one of my favorite products we've ever had is our gator.
Oh, it's
because God
money
knows,
in the cold.
None of you need. Yeah, it's a solid, well thought out product. It's significantly better than ever rocking a turtleneck.
Or it's like a abbreviated short. It's a scarf, but without the problems.
Scarf. It's a scarf without the red, itchy, all the problems. I mean, all I see are problems when I see scarves.
I'm gonna be wearing one this winter, guaranteed.
Dude, I will never, ever, just mark it down. Never gonna own a sweater. Never will own a turtleneck. Period. And will never own a scarf. Ever. Under any circumstance. None. I will never compromise my lack of fashion sense and just straight up stubbornness, and then my attachment to just my own preferences on how things should look in life. I'm not wearing a fucking scarf. No way. 0 point. Okay? That's what you make hoodies for. If you have the right hoodie, you don't need a scarf. You don't need it because they come up just high enough right under the chin to do the damage, to do the deal. Why do you need a scarf? It's overkill. 100% overkill. It's like socks that are too high. Like, why? What do you need to warm your calves for? Like, if you wanted to warm your calves, wear better pants. These are all simplistic things. Like we should all be well aware of. And I'm sure half the people on here that have met me or seen me at races are like rolling their eyes. Are like, this is the last guy that needs to be dishing out fashion. Fashion advice. But listen, you keep it simple, you keep it sweet, and the benefit of that is when I decide to wear like jeans or like a polo, people are like, wow. It dressed up. I mean, you set the bar low, and then you can capitalize when you do the bare minimum. And people are like, "Man, you really dressed up tonight." Yeah, pull out the old jeans and the polo, and I'm rocking it. Ready to go to the wedding.
Yeah,
do you own a scarf? I feel like you do own a scarf.
Acid washed stretch jeans that you have.
The boot cutters cut up the side and make sure they cover your Doc Martens.
Dude, I've got a scarf somewhere. 100%. It's a Scottish tartan scarf from my ancestors.
It's a what?
The tartans, like the kilts, they have that plaid pattern on them. Yeah, so it's like my clan from Scotland. Oh. Anyway, I do want to point out that we do have a Muncie preview you mentioned earlier, but I looked it up. It's number 65, which is really early on in the game. It might be fun to listen to. Not really.
I don't do that.
I don't either.
I'm actually people are like, do you go back and listen to your podcasts? No, never. Like most people hate listening to themselves on an answering machine. Do you want to go back and listen to yourself speak for an hour? And half the time it's probably not even good. And then you go back to like the first 100 we did, and they weren't good, and you wonder how we got here. Look at this perseverance, right? We are the equivalent of making it to Kona in the 75 to 79 age group. Okay, that is what our podcast is. Okay, we're only here because everyone else quit, right? Everyone else quit. Everyone else didn't race. They're all old. They all died. Here we are. Still plugging away twice a week. Yeah, that's us. And I promise you here in just a second, we'll get into some actual information because if it is your first time tuning in, you're like, yeah, I know. Those star reviews I saw, they were right because they don't talk about anything triathlon related.
No, but it is interesting now living here with my mom while the house is getting built. I come downstairs a lot and she'll have the podcast on. I'll be like, what is this?
You told me that.
What is this? Well, okay.
It's a problem, man. It's like, it's like popping in the VHS and, watching a highlight reel of your kid, but she gets to listen to you.
No, every once in a while. I'm like, that wasn't bad.
It's pretty, yeah. You could be an accountant or something and she'd have nothing to put on the radio. She'd be like, yeah, he just crunches numbers. He's a numbers guy.
Yeah.
And have nothing else to do.
I know.
She stared at a Texas Instrument calculator and that's the closest thing she can get to you. But now, she gets to listen to you. You get to live. She's probably soaking this up. And soak it up.
Soak it up. It's I guess it's better than the news she has on a lot. But I came down the other day and I was like, did I really just say that? Turn that off. Anyway, let's get into we were talking beforehand.
Like you said, let's get into it's time to get to the meat in the middle, and it's one of those, like you and I talked about it before we went live. It's a really interesting time of year I think for coaches and athletes. And then obviously, for two guys that produce a podcast, like you forget you're speaking we just generally talk through things with each other and then hope that it benefits people in a positive manner. But I think we forget that once October 1st hits, you think like 65, 70, you got Memphis 70.3, you got, Muncie obviously this weekend, you got California in October, but it's interesting because a lot of people are either in just like the don't give a shit phase about training. They just got done with the 70.3 or a full. They've been training all year. They're like, I'm ready for time off. It's fall, it's football, it's baseball, whatever it is. Kids in your sports picking up. It's like I just want to detach for a little bit. It's a lot like waiting tables, right? You got 4 tables. You got one table is like the chill group. They've been they waited. They're in the hospitality industry. They're like just do what you need to do, man. It's all good. Just take your time. No worries. The other group, business professionals, they're like they don't want to be bothered. They just want to do the deal. They're ready to roll. Then they got the other group who's like, the hungover group that's coming in that's just already grumpy and angry. You're dealing with someone different every single time you scroll through an athlete. Then you got one person who is, probably maybe raced in July or August, maybe early September. They've taken their time off and now they're jazzed because they did all their training to the worst part of the year, which is, in my opinion, June through late August. The temps are horrific. And now they're like, I can step outside. Like I got seasonal EPO. My runs are more fun. They're easier. There's no humidity. I can breathe. I can run for more than 3 minutes and I'll break out in a sweat. This is awesome. I'm ready to get back to work, right? Ready for back to work for 2023. Then you have the other, the other third that's like, hey, I'm just now trying to dial it in, right? And so when you produce a podcast and you're trying to speak to everybody, it's really hard. But a lot of times we talk frequently about what people are going through now and race specific things and race recaps like we did on Tuesday. But I do think it's important because I did listen to a podcast. Yes, I've been trying to listen to more.
I'm like, what's going on here?
I know. I'm not a big podcast guy, but I've been walking waffles for like 30 to 45 minutes in the morning, and it's been pitch black. So I've been putting some just like educational stuff. But I was listening to Mikkel Eden. He's the Norwegian coach, brother of Gustav Eden, real familiar with Christian Blumenfeld. He coaches Lionel Sanders and Colin Chartier, who just won the PTO Dallas Open. And he was talking about goals, and he said the reason we are able to continue to meet each goal is because we already have our next goal before our first one is completed.
Oh.
And so while I do think that is a unique way to look at it. I think it also, especially for professionals, I think you have to have that. Like there was a story I read about Christian Blumenfeld that after he won the Olympic gold, his main focus for 4 years, his only focus, right? 48 hours later, after his Olympic gold medal, where, if you're in the Olympics, you got this 4-year tilt, right? Where all you're doing is focus on one race. And then most people just take time off, right? They're done. I need a mental and emotional break. 48 hours later, he was back in Norway doing long rides and runs because he was preparing to do his first Ironman. Mm. And I thought it was really fascinating just because, you can't compare everything with professionals and age groups, even though we try to. But I do think a part of that is important because to me, it's about engagement, right? And so when you talk about, quote unquote off season, or in the way we like to talk about is Q4 and Q1, in terms of the end of this year, beginning of next year, and how you want to prepare for 2023, is some people struggle with the detachment from engagement, right? And a lot of coaches realize this about certain athletes is you can't really give them a little bit. You can give them too much time off to where they become disengaged and it's hard to get them back. A lot of athletes, you have to force it on them, right? You give them one choice week after an Ironman, they're like, "Coach, I need structure in my life. I want it right now." Mm-hmm. You're like, "Oh my God, I better give you structure because if I don't, you're gonna do something stupid or irresponsible." But I do think it's great to always have what you want to complete or do or your pursuit next, and how that is going to play into your next year, and how you can start working on it now, because right now is the best time of year to do next year, right? Because this year is done for a lot of people. You're planning next year. Am I going to do a 70.3? Am I going to do a full? What am I going to do, right? there's a lot of ways to look at that and skin a cat, and you talk about periodization, you talk about how to put training blocks together, and you hear the term like, so traditional periodization, if you're trying to plan out next year, is traditional quote unquote periodization is what they would call like your base building block, which some people just think is only doing zone 2 work. Then you have build phase, which you see a lot, and that would be described as more like muscular endurance phase. And then you see your last block, which would be quote unquote a race specific phase. And there's certain specifics that describe and define what each specific phase would be. And then obviously you go through a race and you repeat it, right? You don't just stay in race specific phase all year, or after you're doing your first race, you just don't stay in race. You go back to the beginning, right? You start with more aerobic work. A lot of people have tried to coin the term reverse periodization. Well, there's no such thing as reverse periodization. You're just periodizing things differently. And that would be like the old school Endurance Nation, when that was around. I'm not even sure if it's around anymore, but that was the very first training plan I ever bought when I was training for Ironman Florida, back when you used to have to print training plans off the internet. Their slogan was fast and then far. So to me, that's also what people try to coin as like reverse periodization, where they focus on high intensity threshold work during the winter, and then they try to go far later. So they really, really try to focus on, creating the most powerful engine possible, and then creating the body around it, and then putting the wheels on it. Right. To me, it's almost more useful, and it's safer for most athletes to go about it in a normal periodized way, quote unquote, where you would build the chassis and the foundation, then kind of put some rugged good tires on it, put a few of the nicer parts in it, and then lastly work on the engine. Main reason for a lot of athletes is because if you build your engine too quick, right, by doing it, and that is the most popular thing to do. If you ask any triathlete on the planet, 9 out of 10 would say, no, I don't want to do zone 2 work in the fall and the winter. I'm going to be bored out of my mind. I want to hop on Zwift or Trainer Road or Rouvet or full gas, and I want to hammer it. I just want to hammer it. They don't want to do 3 zone 1, zone 2 rides a week with 1 higher intensity ride. They get bored to death, right? They want to do hard. But what you risk is, especially if that's the way that you're running, it's a little safer to do cycling, but still you can get burned out quick because you're asking a lot out of yourself. The problem with that is, and I've seen this a lot, and I know you've seen it too, when you pick up athletes that have, like, let's say you pick up a cyclist, giant engine, right? Mm-hmm. Huge engine, or a rower, right? Or a swimmer, gigantic engine. And then you put them out and they want to go run. Well, to them, running a 7.5 minute mile might seem aerobically easy, right? Because they have this gigantic engine. Like we talk a lot about crossover and how, you could probably take the best Tour de France riders that don't ever run, and you could put them against 99% of the athletes on the planet, and they would absolutely destroy you in a 5K because they have that much aerobic capacity. However, when you ask that same athlete to go out, and again, they've done it where they've done hard all the time, in all things, they go out and you put the engine of a bulldozer, right, in the chassis of a Miata, right? They're not strong. Like swimming, no impact; rowing, no impact; cycling, no impact. They go out and they might feel easy running a 7.5, but aerobically it feels easy. But what doesn't feel easy? It doesn't feel easy on their body, right? Their joints, their ligaments, stuff like that. Like that's how you get injured. And so when athletes look at ways to periodize, right? To me, there is no such thing as reverse periodization. You're just periodizing things in a different order. You have to be very cognizant about how you do it and who you do it with, because again, professionals are professionals for a reason. You tell them to do 85% of their workouts for 2 months in zone 2, and they'll do it because it's best for them. They're professionals. That's all they do. Age groupers, athletes that we coach, some of them, you have to toe the fine line of what's going to keep you engaged, right? Keep you busy, keep your attention span in the dark time of the year, when you also understand that for most people, unless you got a fat bike or you live in a great part of the world or the country where they can bike year round, is that once you start committing to the trainer 3 times a week, you look at how long the person's got to be on it for, right? Like 6 months. That's a long time. And then people become, like we kind of talked about structure and flexibility. People become rebellious. Like I know I want to get better. I just want to bike today. I don't want to get back in my trim, my dark dungeon of a hole. It's cold outside. It's dark. I got no motivation. So there's all these things you need to manipulate. And I think one of the most important pieces, and when you ask yourself, especially if you're self-coach, you don't know really how to plan things out or having someone take the guesswork out for you, is like, let me be objective about who I am really, because you might understand and acknowledge that, you know what, like right now, I know that I need 3 months of probably, aerobic work, which if I'm coaching would say it would entail a lot of aerobic, a lot of zone 2 work, but also some VO2 max or maximum aerobic capacity work on the bike to basically raise your aerobic ceiling to give you to build the best engine. But and one athlete might be like, that's good. If that's what's going to take me to get better, I'm all in. I'll do it. Check the box. But athlete B, you might think, okay, they already say, hey, I rode today's zone 2 ride, boring. And you're like, I get it. Like, I know it's not quote unquote fun. But for that athlete, you have to find ways, because you can give it all you want to, right? As a coach, you can prescribe the perfect week for an athlete, but if you can't get them to do it, and again, you can't make an athlete do anything, but if they're going to be less likely to do it, and you give them the perfect week of 100%, but they're only going to want to do 60% of it, right? They're not getting very far. But you could give them a week that might get them 80% of the way. Not the best week, but 80% of the way, but they're going to want to do all of them. That's the win, right? Because they're doing more. So if you're a self-coach athlete, before you even try to plan out your year or use the, annual training plan thing they'd have in Training Peaks, like ask yourself who you are and what's going to keep you engaged before you even worry about what's next.
Right. Well, a lot there, man. As always, I'm kind of like, okay, I got a point on that. Now I forgot what you said. And then you move on. So I just like, for me, because I think, as an age group triathlete myself, who has done like basically 9 years of Ironman racing, and what I like to think about with me is this idea, and I've talked about it, I think before, but caught in a training loop where you do your race. And the reason I bring this up is because watching and spectating so many races and things like that, and talking to so many people afterwards, and this terrible feeling of kind of doing the same thing every year. And we talk about it all the time, but this is the time of the year to work on that stuff that's been bugging you. And for me, you talk about pro triathletes and the way they're going about their business, and whether it's massages and like an extreme appreciation and attention to recovery. And not only that, but getting stronger and working core and building their flexibility and overall strength. And what happens to me a lot is I'll get done with that Ironman. Like you said, like Blumenfeld, I was like 2 days later, he's training for an Ironman after the Olympics. I'm like, all right, this year is going to be different. The next thing you know, it's 3 weeks later and you don't really know what to do. You kind of want to start working on your strength, or, for me, it's always like a swimming thing. I just want to get to the point where my swim is just like it just takes that fear or any anxiety out of the equation. So I always think about, well, just swim a lot. And I've been kind of doing it, but it is that time where, like some athletes, like you said, that you put choice weeks in there or whatever, and they get lost. And so I've kind of been doing what I call like sort of partial choice weeks, where I'll kind of lay a few things in there and then I'll put in choice days and then explain what that means. That could mean an easy ride, a nice swim, or, a day off, whatever. It's your choice. And sometimes I think that we want to work on things. We know what our weakness is, but we don't get after it. And it really is, right. Now is the time, it's like, and that doesn't mean like, I don't think that means going out and busting Roubaix every day just to be a better cyclist. Because like you said, if you're, like for me, I'm kind of in my mind thinking again about Wisconsin next year. It's going to be our team race. And, after this year, it would be fun to get out there on a good day, which the odds are it's going to be beautiful again. So, but I don't think it's like hammering from now to then, like I just think that there's ways to get better. And it's really a good time to do those things that you don't have time for when it's peak and stuff like that, because then, you kind of get behind the 8 ball, and then you got to just start riding a lot, and you got to build the volume and all that kind of stuff. And the next thing you know, you're doing the same exact training that you did last time. So, and then for me, it's like always a creaky feeling, I'm just not as pliable or something like that. So these are the things that it's almost important to kind of take a step back right now and really kind of like reclaim your body and soul and everything like that around the sport. I really just feel like that. And to get structured with that though is the tough part, right? To really get in a groove. I mean, there was times in my life when I was doing a lot of rolling or yogas and things like that. And I think those are the things for me that need to happen. It's almost like you need to, when we talk about, people changing their golf swing, they just break it back down to 0 or something like that. And really kind of just build up in a proper way rather than just sort of being kind of recovered and then going right back into it. Because then you get caught in the trap. And then it's like you're definitely feeling stronger, but are you really having that overall feeling of strength, if that makes sense? Right.
No, I know it totally. And that's where the direction I was going to go as well, especially if you're an athlete. And we do this almost not so much higher cadence, but big gear work. Again, like I think we covered this last week on a Q&A. I am pro strength work if you want to find extra time to do it in, and I think it does benefit some people, but a lot of stuff you can do to get better at cycling and running and swimming needs to be done swimming, cycling, and running. Mm-hmm. And that's like, you hear that from the top coaches. Like if you ask Dan Lorang, Jan Frodeno's coach, and Annie Hogg's coach, and now Lucy Charles Barkley's coach, the three of the top best athletes ever. Maybe he's probably the best triathlon coach, period, ever. And, Brett Sutton, who coached Daniela Reef and Christy Wellington and a bunch of other accomplished, insane Ironman athletes. And even listen to Mikkel Eden talk about, the Norwegian national team and Christian Blumenfeld and Gustav Eat and all that kind of stuff. They don't hit the gym. Mm-hmm. They don't do strength work. The goal is to be a better swimmer, biker, and runner. And they did talk, all three of them talk a lot about big gear work and being stronger, right? Because it also becomes about being able to do things. But it's also about efficiency, right? Like, I know Brett Sutton, if you ever, written, he's kind of hard to listen to sometimes, but way back in the day when he started writing blogs, talk about they just do hills after hill. If you're big gear, just grind it out, right? And you see Daniela Reef when she grinds it on the Queen K here next week, and in my opinion will absolutely destroy the field. It's strength, right? Because in one of our phrases we use, it's not about how fast you're, it's about ability to slow down. That's about strength. Because to me, at the Ironman distance, strength is speed. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people worry more about speed, but they don't have the strength to hold it, right? They worry about their engine, not the chassis, right? They break down, 20 miles for the finish line. But this is a great time here to work on what I would call like development, like skill development, which is also a really great way to kind of keep people. And this is like, unveiling a little bit of it's not secret, but like, when you talk about athletes getting them to do things they might not want to do, but in a different way, it's like, the best salesman on the planet, they don't make it their idea. They let you think it's theirs, right? Like because most people don't want to be sold. They want to come to the conclusion on their own. And for athletes, especially when you look at how long they're going to be on the trainer, right? Or just getting them on there to begin with. You work on very, very high RPM stuff like, 90, 95, 100, 105, 110, 120 RPM, super quick cadence. You're not smashing their legs and their anaerobic capacity. You're not doing a high threshold. You're working on efficiency, right? Pedaling efficiency, again, which is important. It's like, do you want to drive a car with 4 wheels that are rotated? Or do you want to drive a car with, 2 perfectly good front wheels but the back 2 are totally bald and they're out of balance? Mm. Which one's going to make you more apt for injury? That one. And then we always do year round. We do a ton of big gear work. I think it's great on so many levels in terms of building strength, building durability, And to me, big gear work is across all three, right? It's because it's about being strong, but it's also about absorbing, right? Like big gear work should come before you do a lot of threshold work because you want to have the body that can actually put out the work for a longer period of time to absorb it. Like VO2 max stuff combined with big gear work is great for eventually doing threshold work. Same thing goes for running, right? You want to do, fast economy stuff like 25, 30, 45-second bursts where you're running in perfect form for a short period of time and getting a good stimulus from it. Like that's how you produce and develop good running economy. But same thing goes for running controlled on long inclines, right? On hills. Most people pick like an 8%, like, yeah, I crushed this 10% today. Yeah, you probably did it with the worst run form ever. Your calves and Achilles are probably about to explode. And the way you run up at 8% grade is not the way you're going to run in a race. It's just not. You don't have regular, and it's a way to lessen the load on your body, right? And it won't feel as hard on your joints because you're going up. You're not going at such a fast speed. And you're working your posterior chain, like, you feel like, I really got to work on my glutes this year. I got to get better glute activation, and I'm going to do that in the gym. And I'm like, well, you're only running 2 days a week, so your glutes aren't really going to be activated at all unless you're at the gym, right? Or you're squeezing your butt cheeks together, trying not to fart in public. Like that's about all the glute activation you're going to get. If you want to really work on your hammies and your glutes, like go run some hills. Right. Choose the hilly route, right? Run hill repeats. Like that's how it's going to develop to become a stronger runner. Then you put speed work in there, right? Because your body, is strong enough to withstand it, but also can run the right way. Most people go hit the track and the worst run form, and they wonder they get hurt. Well, you're running around you're leaning left the entire time on the inside of the track, and you wonder why your left side's all jacked up after you hit the track. Swimming is the same way. Right. You can do a lot of sprints and you do a lot of paddle and pull work, right? You're working your VO2 max and you're also working the strength work. You're being stronger, right? Because if you want to hold your speed for a longer period of time, then you shed them both and do 200s, 300s. Like I love the sprints with the pull combos because you can work that VO2 max. You can work your anaerobic capacity with 25s, 50s, and hold in good form because it's short enough, right? And with a lot of rest. And then 200s, 300s, 400s, 500s, maybe 800s with paddles and pull buoy, working on strength, right? But you're also keeping it aerobic, giving yourself a little bit of breather, and it's also allowing you, while you're not focusing on your kick, to be stronger and do it for a longer period of time and hold form. Then you can start putting them together when you shed the pull buoy, you shed the paddles, and you're doing, 100s, 200s, 300s, zone 2, zone 3 pace, you meet them in the middle. But you can't skip steps. Right. And so it's all about development. But again, going back to what you were saying, like, again, if you're on the bike, if you're going out running, like, don't start smashing yourself. Think about, stripping yourself down. What do I know I need to do work on it better next year? Not just and here's the problem. You don't want to be at your best in March. Right. And most people see, especially if they're self-coached, working on a training plan, and their first training plan's in May or June, that's what they want to peak for. But if you get another big race the rest of the year, like you don't want to cut things short, right? Mm-hmm. If you ask any coach, how long should, base season be? As long as possible, because at least the least likelihood of injury, the best benefit and the best bang for your buck for most athletes is just to create a huge, gigantic aerobic base. But it's about planning it out for the entire year. When do you want to be at your best, and what's going to be required, right? What's going to be required for a race like Ironman Texas in April is totally different from a race like you might do next year at Ironman Wisconsin in September, right? Your phases aren't going to overlap. They're going to be totally different. The demands are totally different. One course is longer in terms of the amount of time you're going to be on the course, right? A course like Texas, depending on how fast you are, the kind of power output you have, you might only be on the bike course for 4.5, 5 hours, but all in aero, right? Hurricane speed. Wisconsin, totally different. Might be in the course for 30, 40 minutes more technical course, more sitting up, right? And better handling. So they're all different. And then it also means the demands of the run are going to be different. And same thing goes for the swim, downstream swim, regular swim. All these things have to be taken into account. You can't just throw, a generic at more generic and hope you get specific out of it. Right. That's just, they don't, again, there was like a great quote I heard from the podcast a few weeks ago. It was like, we don't do coincidences. And that's what, and we've referenced this plenty of times. I haven't phrased it probably in that clear or good of a manner, but a lot of times when people race and they have a good race, they think what they just did was the best, but all it really was a coincidence. They just happened to be okay this day and put it together. It doesn't mean it was their best. And if you want to be your best and you want to perform at your best, then you have to plan for the best. And that's where, again, that's why most athletes struggle, because they don't know how to plan. And then they put their plan in pen. And then when 3 weeks happen and then they have to take 2 weeks off, or they got Thanksgiving or Christmas or a vacation, they don't know how to unpen a penned plan. That's why it should be a week or two in pencil. But then that causes, a whole lot of, you have to think about it, you have to stress about it, then you have to read about it, then everything you do, what you end up doing is you have, a third, this is what you see a lot with self-coached athletes, is people who spend too much time on the internet looking at what other people do, is they have a 36-week Ironman training plan made up of 9 different training plans and 9 different training methods to get them to where they want to go, because they can't stay focused on what to do for a long enough period of time, either because they don't do one for 4 weeks well enough and they need something else to get re-engaged, right? Or if they see someone else doing something and think, oh, that's what I need. But it really is just, it's triathlon attention deficit disorder.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I do like what you said there as far as the big gear work and the hill training and things like that. And for me, I think as I get older and stuff like that, I'm more aware of what feels good and what is seemingly kind of tearing me apart. And for me, it is the strength work as I get older. And it's, as I was training for Wisconsin in the pool, I was doing a lot of paddle work, like you're saying. And it feels like the right thing. And it feels like what it's doing for me is, we talk about swimmer flexibility and things like that. And you're doing it in a controlled manner that makes sense. And I can almost tell that I'm just getting a little bit more flexible with my swim by doing that. And not just like you're saying, when you want to go fast and you're just going out to crush stuff and your form goes to hell. So I think maybe at the core of it is like what you said, is developing skills and training in ways that, if it's not the strength training and things like that, but strength training within the training, the normal training, in a manner that really helps you with your overall strength. And I just think that, I've always been a big hill fan, and I usually try to run hills. And like for me, long flat runs just beat the crap out of me, and it's like there is an argument for like too much aerobic work. At least I feel like as you're getting older, I think strength work and just sort of pulling your body together and just being able to handle things. And of course, when I always do Wisconsin, that's one of those courses that demands a strong everything, really, or you're going to get beat to hell. And so I tend to gravitate towards that. I don't really enjoy long aero flat rides either, or stuff like that. It just doesn't feel good for my body. I understand the whole idea of building a big aerobic engine and being able to go a long time. But I think sometimes the interesting part is when you mix in those paddles, or you mix in hills, and you do it in a way that feels good, and you're thinking about form and doing it correctly, and doing it, building in such a way that it's not too much, right? Because that's always the thing, is really starting to feel, it's really hard to walk away sometimes when you're kind of feeling like, all right, I finished that strong, but man, I could do a lot more. And then you just kind of grind yourself into a place that turns into that training loop that I was talking about earlier. So, it's really an interesting time to sort of work on that stuff without pressure, and that's where we should go. I think that you have opportunities in training all the time to work on things that you're not good at, but how many people really do it?
And how many people do the whole thing, right? A lot of people skip and jump, especially when they're self-coached, jump through phases, without finishing the first one because they skipped too many sessions. They just think this is what next. Like, well, you're not really developing things, as you skipped the bike workout every other week for 6 weeks, or you missed one week because you were sick, and now you're jumping from this to this. Like, no, stop, go back, do it over again, right? And again, that's one of the again, like a symptom of society is that everybody wants everything now. I got worse on Amazon right now. I'll probably get this afternoon. That's just, we're becoming just so like desensitized to what it takes for long-term growth and development, right? And because we want it all right now. I want to be done. I got to rush to. I got to get done. And that's always when mistakes happen, right? And again, like that's when you're not planning long term. You're making mistakes in the interim and sacrificing gains in the future. And that's just, you have to be steady and yes, calculated, but also just incredibly patient with the process and understanding what's the best for you right now, and also that's going to allow how that's going to allow you to become your best long term. And I think that's one of the biggest struggles with age groupers and why they tend to develop a lot differently than professionals. And then they try to, compare certain things for professionals. And I can do, HIIT sessions, only work 8 hours a week, work on that. So I can do this and I can do that. I'm like, no, you can't. Like you can't cheat building your aerobic system. You just can't, and you wonder why people have issues, racing 70.3 in full distance. It's an aerobic event. And so if all you want to do is work zone 5, then you can't expect to become an aerobically efficient fat burning athlete. Sorry, you just can't. It doesn't work that way. But that's not what gets people's attention, right? Hey, you can either do a 4-hour ride, outside on your road bike and get some great aerobic work in. That's the best thing for you. Or you can do 2 hours, on the trainer and smash yourself. I'll do 2 hours on the trainer, smash myself. Doesn't mean it's better, right? Like you can, there's a lot of ways to skin a different cat, and sometimes you end up skinning an armadillo. And that's what happens with athletes a lot, is like they think they're taking a shortcut that's going to get them the same thing.
Right.
But that's not, like you can't, like you can give an athlete everything, all the recipe, the recipe for the dish. You can give them all the ingredients. You can give them the step-by-step. But it's up to them to put it in the right order, turn the oven on when it's supposed to be turned on. Like, don't put it in at 300 when it's supposed to be preheated to 450, another shortcut, right? Don't take it out 5 minutes early because you're running late. All these things sacrifice the end dish, which should be your race. But athletes continuously, but if I put a little bit, what's putting in the oven 10 minutes early? What's taking out the oven 5? I'll let it rest. I can add a little more of this. This is my flavor. That's what I like to do. I like to smash it. I'm going to add in a little bit extra salt and sugar. And then you taste the final dish and you're like, it tasted okay. I'm like, is that what you paid for? Is that what you signed up for? Okay.
Right.
Yeah, but it was more. What's more fun, right? Racing, and that's one of those shifts that every athlete has to understand. And oftentimes as a coach, you tell them, I understand you like doing this. I get it. But I'm telling you right now, it's not what's best for you long term. If you're okay with that, then I'll be okay with it too. But you need to understand as an athlete that what you're choosing to do or not do because you don't like it or you don't want to do it or it doesn't seem fun. Okay, I get it. It's my job to work with you in the outline of what you want to do, how you want to do it. As long as you understand that that's not going to get you where you want to go, then we're good. But a lot of athletes, and some athletes like, hey, that's fine. I just need to be entertained. Okay. But understand that the big show, the red carpet event, the big reveal, race day, it won't be as fun. It won't be as good. It won't be as show-stopping. But you'll have enjoyed being entertained leading up to it. And if you're okay with that trajectory, right, the opposite, that's kind of how you get, you get two different kinds of people. The other kind of people is like, I don't care how my training is. If it makes me better, faster, stronger, and I will smash races, I want to smash races. They'll do that. But then they have the other end that's like, yeah, but this, and they're like, that's okay, right? And that's okay. But you have to have, both coach and athlete has to have the understanding that I'm fine if you want to get in your own way, we'll work at it, but it's probably not going to be ideal for where you are in your development and how you can produce on race day. And that's, again, I think a tough conversation for athletes to have with themselves is, do I really want to get better? Do I really truly want to get better? Or do I like the idea of getting better as long as it's done under what I really want to do with my life? Right? Like I always have this conversation with Hayden. Like there's a big difference in want and need. You don't need that. You want it. You don't need it. Like you got everything you need plus too much, honestly. You just want it. And that's a conversation athletes should have with themselves. Do you really want to get better and also feel that need? I just really need to get better. I feel that in my bones. Like I really want to challenge. I'm going to do whatever it takes. Well, doing whatever it takes also means doing stuff that isn't going to be as exciting or as attention grabbing or as entertaining as you want it to be. But then some athletes, they like the thought of getting better, but only if it looks the way that I want it to look under my own, discretion. Again, it might not get you exactly where you want to go.
Well, what you were saying there was really resonating with me personally, because it, again, sort of somebody who started doing Ironman racing 10 years ago. And I just don't, I think there was a time when I could get away with things. You know what I mean? I was just maybe a little, obviously younger, but fresher and stronger, and then mentally had more of a tenacity or something early on. I mean, but the more you do these things, and I think a lot of times this is what people face as they stay in the sport a long time, the idea that things that used to seem to work don't really work anymore. When you're younger, you could you're a little more resilient with it and you could power through it or whatever. But now, like, as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, wow, really the off season for me is probably a great time to work on things that I don't really like, but I kind of like, just being more consistent. I was noticing that, and it's well documented that I kind of had a short block leading into Wisconsin and went for it. But there were times in there when I started to really appreciate, long trainer rides and just getting into that long swimming and not killing myself, but really just kind of enjoying it and realizing that, man, I just spent an hour and a half in the pool and that felt great. Mm-hmm. And I know that's good for me, right? That was the thing, other than the fact that I had a bad practice swim, I was a little nervous, but I knew deep down that I was prepared for this swim more than I had been in the past. And so much of it was because, like you're saying, I put in the work. I put in the time to, take that to the next level. And as I think about, how I've historically gone about it, a lot of times it has been the shorter, go out and crush it and hammer things and hope that carries over. Well, certainly it seems to be fading, my ability to get through that. And a lot of it is because of how I used to train and the facilities I had and things like that. But now I am thinking about what you were talking about as far as that aerobic base and really what that takes to build, and how starting now and enjoying the patient piece of it. I mean, because really patience is everything. It's so much in this sport and in our lives. And like you said, everybody's so impatient and things come so quick that we just get in a habit of wanting it now. And I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here because I do know that there's a lot I can do, and it has to do with really kind of allowing myself to love or learn to love the slow build. And I think that starts now. And if you're in the similar position with me, it makes a lot of sense because, the thing is you want to get better like now. So now is the time we're going to go out and just start hammering everything, but that creates that burnout loop. And it's a really good time, I think, just to go out and appreciate and start to love things that you don't really love in this sport, but are necessary.
All things are necessary, right? And I love what you said about like understanding. That's a great question at the end or start of every season. Is where am I right now? Who am I right now? And what do I really want to do? Or what can I do? And I saw this more than I've ever seen in my entire life in 2021 and 2022. Athletes who Because listen, as terrible as 2020 was for a lot of people, it was also really good to a lot of people. They're gonna stay at home with their kids. They didn't have to travel for work. There was no like high level, expectation for most people because everybody could just say, oh, well, it's unprecedented times and this, and we had like our built-in excuse. We just do whatever we want to, live in our PJs and work out 20 hours a week, right? And so people got used to that, and athletes got used to that. I mean, I work with tons of athletes who normally travel 4 days a week or are gone 2.5 weeks out of the month. They did it for 2018, 2019, 2020 happened. They're like, dude, I've got all day. Like, I mean, they can do Zoom calls and listen to shit on their bike, bike running 3-hour endurance rides. People got used to that. And so they got results from that in 2021 from building this gigantic base in 2020. That's why I think you've seen some of the best results ever in the professional triathlon world because of 2020. People just kept building and building and building, and they had the longest build ever. Then they started just racing. They've just been ripping it. So I've seen so many records fall, and all over in all different kinds of sports. But for the normal age group athlete, now you're back working 4 days a week. Now I know it's stressful, to have your kids, at home doing, Zoom school or pretending to do Zoom school, but they also didn't have sports, right? Now you're traveling 4 days a week. Now both your kids are going to sports, doing different things, going to school, coming home with homework. Life is totally different, right? Higher stress, different availability. You can't do the same thing. Can't. And a lot of people are trying to marry themselves to that. You can't do it. And you just always have to, in what always, like you said, what used to work might not work anymore, right? You might have always done better or been able to handle, a 12 to 16 week aerobic build with the focus of, VO2 stuff. And then you would cut straight to an 8-week, build and doing this. But now maybe your body needs, honestly, 16 weeks, right? Not because you need more time, but because your body can't handle that long of a build, right? It puts you more to injury risk, or you just need more time to develop, right? You don't get the same stimulus as you used to. And you see that especially as athletes get older, or either A, older, or B, stress is higher, right? Because an athlete that has a 9-to-5 job that's remote, right? In 2022 and is dating but not serious and doesn't travel, they live in the same state. Well, in the next year they move, they get married, wife is pregnant, change jobs, travels 3 days a week out of town. You can't do the same thing, not just from an availability standpoint, but Johnny B's stress level went from a baseline of like 60 life points a day, right? Just as a baseline, to 110. Right? That means you have to remove 50 training points to allow for the extra life points. Like you can't do it, right? You see it all the time, especially with, fathers whose wife, and they don't train, the wife doesn't train or race, and they have a baby. Shit's gotten real. Things are about to change, whether you like it or not. You're not going to sleep a lot. Like seriously, like little things like that. People just discard. They just discard. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. Going from nine hours of sleep and no responsibilities to maybe 3 interrupted hours a night.
Right. Yeah.
And then a screaming child. Right. Like you got to take all that into account and pace yourself. Like I haven't today because we're now 10 minutes over. But when you're passionate and you're enjoying something you're talking about, it's fun.
Yeah, it is. Get passionate.
Get passionate. I
Find
like that. Let's
passion.
be a shirt. Get passionate. On your desk. Get passionate. Yeah, but it's a yeah, exactly. It's a hard. It's not. Listen, every time of year is hard for a different variety of reasons, but also great to look realistically and to not feel rushed. If you don't want to feel rushed this in 2023 to get in your best shape and stop procrastinating. It's like most people procrastinate and then wonder why they're in a hurry and they're stressed out. You don't have to be stressed out. Get your shit done early. Prepare, right? If you don't want to get the same exact time you've gotten every single year, then start doing different work. Start earlier. Do it differently. Commit more. We're gonna get the same thing. You get out what you put in. And if you only put it in for 6 months, then you're gonna get 6 months out. Put in for 8 months, you're gonna get 8 months out, and do it the right way. Like there's just a lot of we make all these decisions for ourselves, and a lot of athletes try to give, in my opinion, way too much credit to the coaches. You do the work. We can't make you do the work. We're not there to blowing a whistle like an Army's drill sergeant, getting you out of bed, making you make it, stand at attention, and then go do your shit. Like, no, you do it. The choice is yours. The choice is 100% yours to do the work.
Yeah.
And so get up tomorrow and do the work.
Yeah. We've kind of talked about that phrase that I think you came up with it. You said that I like to get in the ballpark when I'm at training. And I just thought of something. I said, I'm going to start getting to the ballpark a little early.
It's just a good seat, man.
That's my new phase, Get to the ballpark this fall, because, that's a good time when you can get all the autographs and you can, meet the ushers and everything and have a good discussion. It might not be a bad plan. That's my new philosophy. Get to the ballpark this fall, and then I'll already be there and itching to go.
Yeah, we should all work on the same timeline of our grandmas going to the beauty parlor.
Okay.
What time are you getting your hair done? 12? Yeah, I'll probably leave around 9:30. I just want to get there early and on time. Like what? It's 10 minutes away. I think we've got, but they're like my Mimi. She's like sitting in her chair, purse in her lap, 3 hours ahead of time. You're like, wait a minute, like. You haven't even had breakfast yet. Yeah, but I just, I got the beauty parlor at noon. I just don't want to get behind. I just want to make sure it's all taken care of. Like, you should all have the urgency of your grandma going to get her hair done. Like, early, ready to roll. Like you said, ballpark, get early, get the autographs. Be ready. That's what, when we showed up to the Titans-Jags game super early, we're rewarded. Hayden walked up the front row and got a game ball from other players. Like, but if you don't, you're going to be sitting behind, some 42-year-old wannabe dad coach who stands up the whole time and screams while he's spearing his crappy beer over the back of your hoodie. Like, that's just, you pick which one. Which one you want? Which experience do you want to have? Right.
Yeah. Mimi going to the salon early says one thing for sure. She's passionate about it. Right?
Yes, she is.
You know what I mean?
Passionate,
you don't go to things late if you're not passionate, So that's really kind of a nice metaphor, actually. If I get in the ballpark early, that means I want to be there. But if I'm going late, it's like, kind of half-assed. I'll get there when I get there.
It wasn't as much of a priority.
Yeah.
The later you want some time. Yeah. That's why at camp, at SO camp, if on time is late, 5 minutes early is on time. 15 minutes early.
Oh man, I got some work to do here, man.
Really not this last year. You want to roll, man. I could tell you wanted to be there. I mean, really, you didn't have a choice, but you were there. That's all that matters. As long as you're there, you're there. We're glad you were here today. Again, best of luck to everyone racing all over the world this weekend, and especially to most of our crew. It's in Muncie and Memphis. Enjoy yourself. Have a good time. And listen to our race preview at Muncie. You said episode 65, I think is what you said.
Yep.
And don't judge us too harshly. It was like our 65th run, and we probably did a terrible job. I think we did a pretty good one. As always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. And as always, if you need anything from Mike, he's available, CrushingIron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com.
Yep. And keep an eye out for the new hoodies. They're in limited supply, so get there early.
Limited?
All right.
Limited? All right, dude. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too, bud. See ya.